Do you think Jung wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort." The shadow in the unconscious is where we hide what we refuse to acknowledge, our flaws, negative instincts, or unwanted aspects of ourselves. When a man declares, "You have to accept me as I am," it does not necessarily equate to honesty, but may be a way to shield that shadow, evading the need to confront himself and the shortcomings he knows exist but refuses to admit. This is where a relationship begins to falter. Someone unwilling to face their shadow often shifts the responsibility onto the other person. When a man uses this statement as a shield, he is denying the possibility of change, which equates to refusing growth. This, in turn, means that issues will not vanish but will persist, gradually damaging the relationship. This seemingly simple statement is, in fact, a warning sign. For instance, in a relationship, when a woman notices unhealthy behaviors in her partner, such as irrational jealousy, quick temper, or excessive control, and tries to address them through conversation, his response might be, "This is who I am, you just have to accept it." At that point, she faces a choice: continue enduring as the one who accepts his true self, or protect herself by walking away. But is that true self truly his essence, or merely an unenlightened version, the shadow he has yet to confront and acknowledge? An emotionally mature person does not use nature as an excuse to avoid change. They understand that everyone must learn and grow through their mistakes. Jung emphasized, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This means that instead of ignoring the negative, we must learn to understand and manage it. In a real-life story, a woman once shared that her husband repeatedly said, "You have to accept me as I am," whenever she raised concerns about his excessive drinking. Though she worried about his health and the family's safety, he clung to that response. She began to doubt whether she was asking for too much, only to realize that love does not demand unconditional acceptance of harmful behaviors. If you often hear this phrase from your partner when addressing issues that need improvement, pause and reflect on whether it truly stems from honesty or is merely a deflection. Often, this statement is tied to negative behaviors like jealousy, control, or irresponsibility. You must set clear boundaries. State firmly that love does not mean accepting everything. If that person refuses to evolve, it is not your fault. It is their limitation. True love is not about enduring pain, but about growing together. For a relationship to truly exist and endure, both partners must move forward together. No one is perfect, so each must take responsibility for their flaws. A man who loves sincerely will understand that growth not only betters himself, but also shows respect for the one he loves. Ultimately, the statement, "You have to accept me as I am," only holds value when it arises from a spirit of responsibility and a desire for growth. If used as a tool to evade change, growth, it merely proves that the person is not ready for a genuine relationship. In love, no one is obligated to bear the consequences of another's stagnation. Self-acceptance does not mean surrendering to flaws, but bravely recognizing them to become better. Number 2, all my exes were crazy, toxic. And then, when unconditional acceptance is no longer enough to mask stubborn and negative behaviors, another form of sophistry emerges. At this point, he begins to speak of past relationships with a mocking, bitter tone. All my exes were crazy, toxic. At first glance, it may seem like a candid sharing of past pain and suffering. But if you listen closely, you'll uncover a sophisticated system of blame beneath the surface, a clear denial of responsibility, and, most strikingly, a psychological projection, a defense mechanism deeply explored by Carl Jung. Jung once said, "Projections change the world into the replica of one's unknown face." When a man claims that all his exes were crazy, he is not merely talking about others. In truth, he is revealing the shadow within his psyche. Through projection, he casts his insecurities, shortcomings, and negative behaviors onto others, making them the cause of all his wounds. In his world, he is never wrong, never at fault. The problem always lies with others. The most dangerous aspect of projection is how it distorts reality and obscures the truth. Jung explained that people often avoid their imperfections by attributing them to others. Instead of self-reflection, this man chooses to flee. He refuses to acknowledge that his controlling tendencies, jealousy, or irresponsibility may have caused rifts. All he needs is a narrative. The women who passed through his life were difficult, abnormal, crazy, as if they were the sole reason for every breakdown. This is not some distant theory. It plays out in countless real-life relationships. One woman shared that her boyfriend constantly spoke of his past relationships with resentment. He described his exes as controlling, jealous, does not liberate, it oppresses. But instead of bravely acknowledging his role, he chooses to pin every mistake on others, as if his life is merely a long chain of victimhood at the hands of toxic women. Projection creates a vicious cycle that's hard to escape. The new woman entering his life is easily swept into feeling like the special one, the savior who will rescue him from his shattered past. But if he remains unchanged, if he continues to refuse to confront his shadow, the tragedy will repeat, not because you're like his exes, but because he is still the same old him. And you are not the exception, you are simply the next victim on his list of blame. When a man incessantly emphasizes that all his exes were toxic, observe closely whether he ever mentions his faults. This is the moment to ask directly, have you ever considered that you might have played a part in those situations? A mature person will be willing to sit down with you and face the truth. A manipulator, however, will evade or turn the attack back on you. And then you must ask yourself, do you want to be the next character in his diary of crazy people? Are you prepared to carry the weight of an entire relationship while he comfortably plays the victim? Someone who cannot own their mistakes cannot grow, and in that relationship, you will not only be a partner, but also the dumping ground for his unhealed wounds. Number 3. If you really loved me, you'd do what I ask. When stories of crazy exes lose their manipulative power, a more cunning tactic often emerges. If you loved me, you'd do what I ask. This statement appears cloaked in a gentle plea, a simple request born from a desire for love and understanding. But beneath its seemingly innocent surface lies a classic form of emotional manipulation, emotional blackmail, which Carl Jung described as the subtlest form of control, where love ceases to be a shared bond and becomes a heavy tool of coercion. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other." The phrase, "if you loved me," is not an expression of affection, but a hidden blade wrapped in the guise of love, making the other person feel obligated to comply. When a man uses love as a pretext to impose his desires, he is stifling the other's freedom, turning love into a tool of control and the woman into a puppet pulled by strings of guilt. What makes emotional blackmail so dangerous is its ambiguity. Unlike overt abuse or direct control, this manipulation hides beneath a veneer of affection, making it hard for the controlled person to recognize they are losing autonomy. The man cannot manage his wounds or fears, so he seeks to control you, his partner, by stripping away your freedom under the guise of love. The statement, "If you really loved me, you'd do what I ask," also reflects the archetype of the manipulator. According to Jung, such individuals often cannot confront their fear of abandonment, insecurity, or lack of control. Instead of acknowledging these vulnerabilities, they manipulate others through the concept of true love. They establish an unspoken standard. You are only worthy of love if you do exactly what they want. And when you don't, they use guilt to keep you tethered. One woman shared that her boyfriend used this phrase every time she refused something. When she wanted to spend time with friends or pursue her hobbies, he would say, "If you loved me, you wouldn't need those things." At first, she thought sacrificing a little to make him happy was reasonable. But soon, every choice she made was driven by fear. If she didn't comply, perhaps she didn't love him enough. She gradually withdrew from her friends, abandoned her passions, and ultimately lost herself. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But when love is weaponized for manipulation, that privilege is slowly stolen. The woman no longer lives as herself. She becomes a shadow of his expectations, molded to fit the image he desires. Emotional manipulation doesn't stop at a single boundary. Once you compromise, the demands escalate, more, deeper, more controlling. A man who demands under the guise of love is chasing an idealized fantasy, someone without boundaries, without individuality, who never says no, someone who always says yes. But that is not real. No one can live forever as a people pleaser for someone who is never satisfied. This subtle control erodes a woman's emotional freedom, personal choices, and ability to recognize her true worth. Each concession allows someone else to blur your boundaries. And the tragedy is that many women only realize they've been manipulated when they are exhausted and have lost everything. They are drowned in a cycle of compliance, guilt, and fear of abandonment, to the point where they know he is projecting his discontent onto you. Unmet expectations, unhealed wounds, and unresolved insecurities are all transferred to you as if you were the cause of everything he cannot control. Picture this. He's gazing into a distorted mirror, but instead of seeing himself with his inner cracks, he sees those cracks reflected in you, the closest, most vulnerable person. And so, he passes judgment. You're not enough. But if translated truthfully, that statement would read, I'm not enough for myself, and I cannot accept that. This is also a clear manifestation of the archetype of the critic, the shadow self that Jung analyzed in depth. The critic is an ego that constantly scrutinizes, always demands, and is never satisfied. It does not seek growth, but craves to pinpoint weaknesses to negate others, masking its inner emptiness. A man who repeatedly says you're not enough is not offering an objective critique, but unloading his deep-seated frustrations onto the one person he can control, you. What makes this form of manipulation particularly dangerous is its direct assault on your belief in yourself. You begin to wonder, am I truly not enough? Do I need to try harder? You gradually lose the confidence you once had, and worse, you start to believe your worth depends on how he perceives you. This is the beginning of a dangerous emotional dependency, where you cease to be yourself and become a shadow striving to fit an illusory mold set by someone else. The way out comes only when you recognize the manipulation. Ask yourself, am I truly not enough, or is he not strong enough to love someone wholly? Someone who truly loves you doesn't need to diminish you to bolster their ego. They won't weaponize their wounds to hurt another. And it is this awakening that empowers you to step out from under the influence of controlling judgments. When you understand that your worth does not hinge on anyone's validation, when you realize that phrases like, "you're not enough for me," reflect a conflicted soul, you will no longer be swayed by them. You are whole as you are, needing no one to certify it. Number 5. Do whatever you want. Toxic men often wield phrases that make women mistake them for understanding, empathetic, and tolerant, when in reality, they are masterful manipulators. One such quintessential phrase is, "Do whatever you want." On the surface, it appears as permission, a respect for personal freedom. But through the lens of Carl Jung's psychological analysis, this is a form of passive aggression, a subtle, silent manipulation that sows confusion and guilt without raising a voice. The phrase, "do whatever you want," is not merely consent or an expression of unconditional love. It is a hallmark of the archetype of the saboteur, the shadowy figure who undermines not through confrontation, but by manipulating emotions through silence and ambiguity. Imagine you've planned a weekend meetup with friends, brimming with excitement and anticipation. You share this with him cheerfully, hoping for support or at least a kind word. But instead of enthusiasm, he responds with a cold, detached tone. "Do whatever you want." No objection, no encouragement, just a vague, lingering statement. Instantly your joy fizzles out. You're left adrift in a sea of thoughts. Is he upset? Is he disappointed because I didn't choose to stay with him? Instead of enjoying your plans, you spend the day worrying, placating, and trying to soothe someone who never clearly expressed anything. This is the power of passive aggression, what Jung described as a form of control disguised as silence. Those who lack the courage to face their true emotions or don't know how to handle conflict often resort to indirect pressure. They don't need to forbid or rage. They simply plant an ambiguous seed that sends the other spiraling into self-doubt, guilt, and ceaseless anxiety. The man employing this tactic doesn't argue or engage. He simply leaves a void for you to fill with guilt. With one seemingly casual phrase, he's made you confused, introspective, and stripped of peace. He doesn't need to show attitude, because his silence alone is enough to make you censor your own emotions. This is when the saboteur archetype reveals itself, the one who wounds from the shadows. He wears the mask of respecting freedom, but is deftly shirking responsibility. When things go smoothly, he remains silent and reaps the benefits. But when something goes awry, you're the only one left to bear the consequences. Do whatever you want ceases to be permission and becomes a quiet preemptive strike where you alone shoulder the risks of your decisions. Carl Jung warned explicitly about the dangers of suppressed emotions. In Psychological Types, he wrote, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. Those who opt for passive aggression dwell in that gray zone, evading truth without seeking change. They leave emotions dangling, letting others bear the chaotic whirlwind they silently create. The consequences go beyond a few misunderstandings. When you're constantly placed in a state of self-questioning, exhaustion, and anxiety slowly erodes your confidence and autonomy. You begin to live defensively, weighing every action, avoiding conflict, and striving to please the other even at the cost of your own emotions. The phrase, 'do whatever you want,' is no longer permission, but the fuse for days spent in vigilance, second-guessing, and adjusting yourself to someone who never speaks their true mind." So, have you ever heard, "do whatever you want" from someone significant in your life? And when you heard it, did you truly feel free to live your desires? Or were you suffocating in a void of doubt and unease? Share your answer in the comments below. Perhaps many others out there have lived through a story like yours, and your story could be a beacon for them. He learned to face his emotions, never been taught to listen to another's pain without feeling threatened. Emotions become something to control or suppress. This is a subtle form of gaslighting, where the man doesn't need to argue or present logic. He simply plants a seed. The issue isn't his behavior, but how you feel about it. She comes to discuss an action of his that hurt her. He doesn't address the action. He doesn't take responsibility. He simply concludes, "Your emotions are wrong." This is when the archetype of the wounded child speaks through the man's psyche. He feels attacked, criticized, or demanded of, and instead of listening, he retreats into defense. But not with a fortress, rather with a powerful label. He's not the one at fault. He's the victim of a woman with too many emotions. Have you ever experienced moments like this? You've mulled over an unresolved issue between you two, hoping for closure. When you ask for a serious conversation, hoping it might bring some relief, he responds, "Why do you always make a big deal out of everything?" You weren't accusing, you just wanted to share your feelings to be understood. If you've had a similar experience, leave a sign in the comments. Perhaps sharing will lighten your heart. Jung said that when emotions are dismissed, a relationship cannot grow positively. True intimacy cannot exist if one side must constantly suppress themselves to avoid being labeled overreacting. From a small dismissal, you begin to learn silence. You start filtering what you're about to say. Will he think I'm being a nuisance? Am I overreacting? Maybe I'm thinking too much. Gradually, you stop speaking up, because you've been manipulated into believing your emotions are wrong, that you're blowing things out of proportion. This doesn't just turn you into a puppet in the relationship. Over time, you become submissive and silent, convinced your feelings aren't worth expressing. Let me tell you, emotions are not a burden. Emotions are messages. When you feel hurt, it doesn't mean you're too weak. It means you're being honest with yourself. But if the other person cannot receive that message, and instead makes you doubt the value of your emotions, what you have isn't love. It's training to betray your intuition. Carl Jung emphasized, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their soul. And that man, instead of joining you to understand himself more deeply through conversation, chooses to turn away, leaving you to bear the burden of connection alone. If you've ever been labeled overreacting just for daring to voice what makes you sad, hurt, or uneasy, stop immediately. Don't let a single phrase twist your emotions into a mistake. Ask yourself, am I truly wrong? Or am I just living authentically with what I need? Because love isn't measured by how moderate your emotions are, but by the honesty in your connection. And if he cannot accept that honesty, staying only means continuing to live in a relationship where emotions must bow. And then, there may come a moment when he utters the final phrase in this chain of dismissals. You should be grateful I'm still here. At that point, the control is no longer silent. It becomes a proclamation. And you'll have to ask yourself, stay to be grateful or leave to know yourself. Number 7. You should be grateful I'm still here. When your emotions are judged, when your inner voice is repeatedly distorted as overly sensitive, something even more insidious happens. You begin to feel grateful that he's still there, despite your supposed inadequacies. This is the final stage of silently losing yourself, where love ceases to be a bond and becomes a lopsided contract. You must feel guilty simply because he hasn't left you. And the phrase that crosses that final boundary is, you should be grateful I'm still here. This statement carries the guise of magnanimity, as if he has endured something about your character, and thus, you should be thankful. But in truth, it's the ultimate declaration. His presence is a privilege. You are a burden. This phrase doesn't just put you down, it makes you believe the love you receive is conditional, costly, and could be withdrawn at any moment if you don't show enough gratitude. When you live with someone who constantly reminds you to be grateful for their presence, you lose the chance to awaken from within. All your senses are redirected outward, measuring their satisfaction, avoiding the fragile line where crossing it might cost you your right to be loved. Imagine a woman. She has stood by her partner through his toughest times: unemployment, loss of direction, psychological crises. She stayed, never leaving. But when she shares that she's exhausted, that she needs care in return, he turns and says, "I've been through so much, and I'm still here with you. You should be grateful for that." And so, instead of being heard and understood, she feels as though she's been granted a favor, not as someone nurturing a relationship but to return to the truth within you. The truth is that your presence is a gift. No one has the right to make you feel grateful for being accepted. True love is not a cup you must carefully cradle to avoid spilling the other person's emotions. Nor is it a chess game where every move carries the fear of rejection, criticism, or abandonment. If you must tiptoe, speak softly, and live in constant dread of being too much, too little, or too wrong, that is not love. It is a maze of words where you are guided by harmless phrases only to lose your way within your own heart. Toxic men don't manipulate with chains, they use words. A word soft enough to evade suspicion, yet sharp enough to cut into your self-belief. And if you don't awaken, you'll spend your life in a house with no exit, simply because you thought it was the only place with light. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." So if you feel you're living like a stranger in your own body, playing the role of just right for someone who never truly loves you, perhaps it's time to open the door and step out of that dream. I sincerely thank you for joining me on this journey of awakening. If what I've said has helped you recognize the red flags in the partner beside you, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications today. Your support means so much and fuels my motivation, and who knows, future videos might arrive exactly when you need them most. The shadow is the part of a man he has learned to conceal to gain society's approval, and in that very process, he severs himself from his soul. In Jungian psychology, The shadow is the repository of everything the ego refuses to acknowledge. It may be jealousy, ambition, insecurity, a desire for control, or even a yearning to be loved unconditionally. Things he was taught from childhood that men are not allowed to feel. The more he denies it, the stronger the shadow grows, subtly influencing his behavior, his gaze, and the most pivotal decisions of his life without his awareness. Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you reject continues to exist and govern you." You can see the shadow when a man lashes out inexplicably at the woman who loves him, when he withdraws as emotions deepen, or when he throws himself into work like an addict, not to succeed, but to escape the emptiness within. He may not realize it, but this repressed part drives him unconsciously toward shallow relationships, repeated failures, and a deep, hidden exhaustion that no achievement can soothe. Jung believed that for a man to truly love, not with fleeting infatuation, but with profound, committed love, he must confront his shadow. And the miracle is this: sometimes a woman becomes the doorway to that dark place, not by criticizing or wounding him harshly, but by seeing the part of him he dares not face, by creating a space where he can briefly shed his armor, breathe, collapse, and be witnessed without judgment. The shadow, where he hides all his shame, becomes the ground where love takes root if someone is brave enough to stay, unafraid of those dark corners. To understand the shadow in a man, picture him as a frozen lake. The surface is smooth, solid, walkable, even reflective, like the composed, rational face he presents to the world. But beneath that ice lies deep, dark, cold water, holding everything he has never confronted. Anger he wasn't allowed to express, buried dreams, insecurities cloaked in arrogance. Most women interact only with the surface, then wonder why love slips away like melting ice in warmer weather. But the woman who touches a man's true heart is unafraid to walk on that thin ice, to listen to the cracks beneath her feet, and to bravely reach into the cold water, where his true self waits to be seen. She does not dive in to save him. She merely touches. That touch, courageous yet not controlling, compassionate yet not pitying, is the soul-shaking moment a man never forgets. For the first time, someone gazes into the dark waters beneath without fleeing in fear. That is the moment true love begins. Not love born of admiration, but love born from coexisting with the darkness, a place neither dares to venture alone. You see, a man does not always need someone to love him, pamper him, or uplift him. What he sometimes needs is someone who sees even his ugliest parts and chooses to stay, not to teach, but to be present as a mirror of the shadow, giving him the chance to face himself for the first time without running away. The shadow is where true love begins, not because it is beautiful, but because it is real. When a man dares to reveal his most vulnerable self, and a woman is brave enough not to flinch, it ceases to be a mere relationship. It becomes a transformative ritual. And you know what? Not everyone has the depth to touch that part of a man. But if you are a woman with a gaze profound enough, a heart expansive enough, and the courage to face your own shadow, you become the one who awakens his soul. Not through dazzling beauty or clever tactics, but through a presence of depth, a presence that makes him unable to hide anymore, a gaze that strips away every mask, a silence that brings his fears to the surface. And in that moment, as he confronts his fragility, he begins to fall in love with you. This is the kind of love born from complete acceptance, when a man finally sees that he does not need to be perfect to be worthy of love. That is the power of a woman who steps into the shadow, not to judge, not to possess, but to illuminate. It is a sacred journey where love transcends emotion and becomes liberation. Number 2. Anima. While the shadow is the hidden realm deep within a man's psyche, where rejected parts and sacred wounds reside, the anima is its counterpart, the inner goddess he cannot live without, yet cannot grasp through sheer will. If the shadow is where darkness speaks, the anima is the song that soars from the soul. Jung called it the archetype of the feminine within a man's psyche, the inner beloved, an embodiment of tenderness, intuition, creativity, emotion, and the mysterious chaos that reason cannot tame. A man may meet hundreds of women in his lifetime, but only a few stir in him a strange, inexplicable enchantment. Not because of their appearance, not because of with women online, an influencer, an artist, or a woman who exists only through curated images and cryptic captions. She is not truly present in his life, yet he loves her, sending long messages, imagining elaborate scenarios. There is nothing wrong with this, but it perfectly illustrates the anima's mechanism. The real woman is merely a screen, while the story of the film comes from his unconscious. Yet, if a woman understands this, she can dissolve the projection and transform it into a genuine bridge. She does not need to perpetually play the role of his imagined muse. She must guide him back to himself. She must hold on to her truth, refusing to sacrifice herself to sustain the illusion. And if she succeeds, she not only inspires his love, but also guides him toward individuation, becoming a whole man. Does this stir any memories for you? Have you ever awakened the anima in someone, or been made the screen for a man's projection of a self he does not yet understand? If so, I invite you to share your story in the comments, not just to unburden yourself, but so other women, lost in similar emotional labyrinths, might find themselves in the light of your experience. So the question is, how can you, a flesh and blood woman, touch a man's anima? Not through contrived mystery or calculated aloofness, but through the subtle vitality of your inner world. By living authentically with your emotions, not stifling them to please him. By listening to your intuition, preserving your natural depth and mystery, qualities that even you cannot fully explain. When you stop striving to be loved, you become the soul terrain a man has never explored. And when he steps into it, he no longer sees a mere person. He sees the reflection of his missing parts. This allure lies not in control, but in being utterly uncontainable. Jung wrote in Man and His Symbols, "The anima, like the animus, is a psychopomp, a mediator, and a link with the unconscious. A man may deny this his entire life, but if one day he meets you, the one who awakens that part of him, he will remember you forever. Whether he loves, leaves, or hurts, the emotion you evoke is irreplaceable, not because you are perfect, but because you were once the mirror for the forgotten part of his soul. But remember, with this power comes sacred responsibility, not to keep him by your side, but to return him to himself. The anima is not a tool to wield over a man, but a gift you can offer if you are conscious of your worth. The anima is the sacred within a man, and you, when you live true to your inner self, need not strive to reach that part. You embody it. That is a power no one can replicate, no algorithm can simulate, no mask can fabricate. When a man loves you at this level, he does not love you merely as a woman. He loves you as a symbol of his yearning for wholeness. And such love, rare as stars in a stormy sky, leaves an indelible mark on his soul once it takes root. Number 3. 3 keys to awakening deep love in a man. The first key, the mirror of the soul. Now that you understand the unconscious mechanisms that govern a man's love, you realize it is no longer a mere impulsive reaction. It becomes a journey. But for that journey to avoid drifting into illusion and projection, he needs an anchor, a mirror of the soul to reflect the image he is striving toward. And that mirror is you, if you learn to look at him not with expectation, but with the vision of an awakened soul. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for a man to become his true self, he first needs to be seen by someone, not the version he performs, but the latent essence yet to take form. This is the first and one of the deepest secrets to awakening profound love in a man. To become the mirror that reflects his unawakened potential with depth, subtlety, and unwavering honesty. You don't need to proclaim this overtly. You don't need to praise him or offer hasty compliments. You simply need to look at him with eyes that see beyond the present, piercing through to the part of him he still doubts. When he speaks of an old dream he hasn't dared pursue, you don't laugh encouragingly or console him. Instead, you ask, if nothing held you back, where would you start? That question is not just a question, it's a call to awaken the sleeping part of his soul. In reality, most men have learned to limit themselves. They define themselves by their work, social roles, or what earns them praise. But deep within, they carry an unspoken dream, a heroic part of themselves no one has ever seen. When you become the one who sees it, you touch the higher self within him. And once reflected, that self refuses to remain dormant. Picture a man as a massive stone, solid, perfectly formed, but hiding an undiscovered, unpolished gem within. When you look at him not to possess challenges him to live more authentically, more expansively, more true to his soul. How do you practice this? Each time he shares an aspiration or fear, respond not with praise, but with questions that expand the space of his soul. What holds you back? Not to lead him by the hand, but to show him he can take the step himself, and that you believe in his stride. The difference between shallow encouragement and profound reflection lies here. One says, "You can do it," to make him feel good. The other says, "I see you haven't yet tapped your full potential," inspiring him to challenge himself. However, if this presence and deep understanding are always available, always there each time he turns to you, it gradually loses its magic. Not because you've changed, but because the nature of the male psyche and the human psyche craves what remains incomplete. This is where the second key emerges, the paradox of presence. The second key, the paradox of presence. This paradox does not teach you to play psychological games or feign unpredictability. Rather, it stems from a profound psychological truth Jung uncovered. The ego only truly desires what it feels it cannot fully possess. In the male unconscious, the journey of conquest is not just a path to affection, but a way to reaffirm identity. A man doesn't always need closeness. Sometimes, what sets his heart ablaze is a well-timed absence. Imagine a man's mind as a summer field. If you are the sun shining relentlessly from dawn to dusk, the soil will parch. But if you are the moon, waxing and waning, full, then faint, you leave within him a void, a gentle absence, a subtle longing where he wonders, where is she in her world? Constant presence kills mystery. But intentional absence, not to ignore, but to honor yourself, ignites in him the fire to reach for you. In practice, this requires you to live a genuinely full life, not pretending to be busy or aloof, but truly engaged in your journey. When you stop being the woman waiting for his text, when you no longer react instantly to his every signal because you are living your own vibrant life, you compel his mind to return to you. Your inner world becomes a realm of depth, with boundaries and mysteries that cannot be fully explored in a single encounter. In neuroscience, studies show that dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire and reward, surges when the reward is uncertain. This is why games like lotteries, raffles, gambling, and even ambiguous love hold such irresistible allure. The male psyche, shaped by millennia of hunting and conquest, does not respond strongly to what is always available, but it reacts profoundly to what requires inner effort to attain. You don't need to become an illusion. You simply need to stop making everything predictable. Instead of replying to a text instantly, wait until you genuinely want to respond. Instead of always being free on weekends, have days when you vanish from both your schedules because you need to recharge. This isn't just about not meeting or texting. Do something meaningful in that time. Take a walk alone, learn something new, write in a journal, paint, or simply let yourself be still. When you truly live a colorful, independent life, the energy you radiate is that of a woman who cherishes herself. The paradox of presence doesn't mean withdrawing completely, too cold, and you become unreachable, too predictable, and you lose allure. The magic lies in the balance, the intentional oscillation between near and far, light and shadow, giving and withholding. This is the art of the sacred distance, which Jungian psychoanalysis calls the differentiation necessary for individuation. When you give a man space, you don't make him forget you. You create the conditions for his memory of you to come alive. In that space, he no longer reacts to you instinctively. He begins to reflect, to introspect, and sometimes to fall in love. Remember, the most captivating thing is not your appearance, but the sense that you belong to a world he has yet to fully explore. You are the door to that realm, never fully closed, but never flung wide open. And the strange thing is, when a man embarks on the journey of not fully possessing you, he also begins to venture into not fully understanding himself. In that space, love ceases to be a need. It becomes a sacred labyrinth, and you are its center. The third key, facing the shadow. When you master intentional distance, when your presence carries depth and rhythm like the phases of the moon, you make a man unable to stop thinking of you. But if it stops there, love remains a game of attraction and absence. To reach the deepest layer of a man's heart, where love not only endures time but becomes a force of soul renewal, you must dare to do what few can. Open the door for him to face his own shadow. This begins with the smallest act of courage, sharing a part of yourself you usually hide, creating a safe space where your true self can emerge. For example, at me for months. That was the first time he revealed his deepest wound, a man who never cried, now bearing himself in the silence. From that moment, their relationship entered a new dimension, not because they fit, but because they had been seen in their brokenness. Such moments don't come from technique. They come from a willingness to be present with the shadow. Here's how you can practice this in real life. First, when he shares something painful, don't try to inspire or advise. Just listen with your whole being. Hold a quiet space, a gaze that doesn't retreat. Silence speaks louder than 1,000 "you'll be fines." Then, create room for him to speak of failure without judgment. Ask questions that gently touch the edges of his ego. Is there something you did wrong that you're grateful for? Or, what did a big mistake teach you about yourself? These questions open a space where he doesn't need to be perfect to be loved. He can be a failure and still be accepted. Most importantly, don't use the darkness to control. The shadow can easily become a tool for manipulation if you wield his wounds as emotional leverage. Don't bring up his past to demand he change. Don't say, "You're like this because your father didn't love you." That's not healing, it's manipulation. True healing respects the other's freedom to grow. When you live by these principles, you don't just touch a man's shadow. You transform it from something rejected into the substance of love. And the most miraculous thing is, when the darkness is accepted, the hidden light within him begins to rise. Not because you did anything extraordinary, but because your authentic presence is healing. Number 4. The lesson: awakening love without losing yourself. But here is what you must remember. Awakening deep love in a man is a sacred act, and the sacred never means losing yourself. This awakening holds value only when you remain fully you, whole, vibrant, fiery, and with clear boundaries. The end of a journey should not be a period, but an open door. And if you've walked with me this far, perhaps a part of you is stirring, like a still lake gently touched by a falling petal. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Your presence is a great encouragement for us in our mission to bring the authentic values of Jung's philosophy to more people. So please like and share this video to pass these lessons on to your loved ones and friends. Or leave a comment saying, "I'm ready," if you're prepared for the next chapter of this journey. The fourth key, unnamed among the 3 secrets but a profound lesson for you, pulses quietly like a heartbeat. It is the return to your essence amidst blossoming love. Jung called this individuation, the process of integrating all the fragmented parts within to become a whole self. No love is truly healthy if a woman sacrifices her wholeness to hold on to it. The problem is this: many women, when they sense they are needed, unconsciously become the keeper of the flame, the understanding one, the one who endures, the one who steps back. They slowly blur their identity, suppress their intuition, and sacrifice personal passions, believing love demands flexibility. But love does not require you to shrink. True love demands you open your heart, but not dissolve. Picture yourself as a flame. When you love a man deeply, you don't need to dim your light to avoid burning him. On the contrary, if you preserve that light, neither flaring to consume nor shrinking in fear, you become the central flame, a place he returns to when weary, a warmth that comforts him, but also a fire he cannot approach without learning to respect its radiance. To maintain this flame, you need practice, not emotional techniques, but inner discipline. Here are practical steps to live love without straying from yourself. First, observe your shrinking reflexes when facing the man you love. Do you start agreeing more than you truly want? Do you postpone personal passions because you fear seeming too busy to make time for him? Do you hide your true emotions, worried he'll feel overwhelmed? If you nod at any of these, you're stepping back from your true self to fit expectations. Instead, try the opposite. Say what you think you shouldn't, but know you need to. For example, I need a weekend just for myself. If he truly loves you, this won't push him away. It will make him respect you more because he sees you loving yourself without needing anyone's permission. Second, keep a sacred territory that no one but you can touch. It might be an unbreakable morning ritual like yoga or journaling, a weekend art class, or a cherished bond with a soulmate friend or creative community. It could be a passion, painting, writing, or philosophy that holds value without needing to be shared. Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams." Trembling nor flaring in fear of loss, will you truly become the woman his soul recognizes amidst countless illusions. We don't come to love to become smaller. We come to remember who we are. If you stand before that mirror, don't rush to ask, "How do I keep him?" Ask instead, "Am I keeping myself?" And if the answer is yes, you carry something undeniable, a soulful presence. From here, the rest is not about technique. It's about character. And character cannot be learned. It's forged in courageous solitude and unwavering loyalty to yourself. If this video has helped you see yourself and your relationships from a new perspective, and you've realized there's something in you that doesn't need explanation or proof, don't leave yet. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications today so we can continue this journey together in future videos.